Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Baker, Executive Director of SCBWI. Welcome to Bewitch Your Pitch, Making Your Project Sound Irresistible with Editorial Director of Rodale Kids, Sarah Sargent. Whether you have an event coming up soon where you know you'll have the opportunity to pitch, like visiting the booth at that SCBWI booth at the Bologna Children's Book Fair, or you just want to be ready for anything that might come up, which is a good idea. Pitching your books is so important, and there's skill to it. This event is for SCBWI members and for children's book creators who aren't members yet. So if you're interested in all the benefits of being an SCBWI member, go to our website, scbwi.org, to find out more and to join. There's so much to take advantage of. Okay, so we have a lot to learn about pitching. So let's get started, and I'll be back at the end to help with some Q&A. Let's welcome Sarah Sargent to the screen.
Hello.
Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me. Always such a treat. Hi, everybody. I'm so sad I cannot see all of your, how many? 725 faces, but it's good to know that you're there. Thank you for the love in the chat. Is that where you're pointing at the hearts and the reactions? All right. Amazing. Yes. So hi, y'all. So such a treat to be here. I'm sure there are so many of you that I have met before, have seen, maybe have even taken pitches from. So great to be here. Okay. So yes, I am Sarah Sargent. I am the editorial director of Rodale Kids at Random House Children's Books, and I am here to talk to you about pitching. So I will just start by saying the way that this came to be, just as a bit of a teaser, is that last year I attended the Bologna Book Fair and was taking pitches for SCBWI in the booth. And that day I met somebody, a member was a member, still is a member, one of you, and basically immediately, I will tell the full story later, offered on her authored illustrated book. So this whole thing is coming out of a success story, less than about a year ago. So that's the teaser. So to let you know that I am now speaking from a place of having been pitched this amazing book about a year ago and taking all of that great knowledge, and Kim and Sarah and the wonderful folks at SCBWI and I talked about that whole experience and thought that it would be a really wonderful presentation webinar. So I'm going to get started. Okay. I assume that you can all see that. Nope, because I'm not sharing my screen. So of course you can't see it. Just kidding. Okay. So sharing it to myself. All right, here we go. Okay, so here we are today. All right, so what is a pitch? So first of all, the way that we're, I'm so glad to see lots of people chiming in the chat. That is awesome. In terms of asking questions, feel free to pop questions into the chat that are more like, I don't understand this specific thing, or can you clarify, points that are about the presentation itself or might need some specifying or detailing, and then also just like your bigger questions. And Sarah Diamond and Sarah Baker are going to help me get through those. So first of all, what is a pitch? Basically, the way that I think of a pitch, you could be pitching any number of people, which is why I'm saying here, it could be an agent, a literary agent, an editor, or a publisher, and those are different things. And it could also sometimes, I guess, be, colleagues or fellow creatives. But the key question you want to identify before you meet with someone to pitch them something is, are they a decision maker? So sometimes this is hard to figure out, but I'll explain why this is important. So basically, the way that a pitch works is that you would be any number of places maybe, but most likely we'll use the example of a conference. You would be ahead of time, either you've signed up or you know that you're planning to go, so you have the ability to prepare, and the whole point of this session is to get you prepared. So ahead of time, you are going to know some collection of who you might be pitching and how long the pitch session is going to be. So later on, I discuss the difference between a pitch and a portfolio review. So this is a pitch. So you're going to sit down in front of somebody. Let's say it's going to be 5 minutes long. And a pitch is where you are taking likely one project, possibly more. We will get to that later. And you are pitching both the project and yourself. So you could be sitting across from a literary agent. That is a decision maker. So a person who could take you on as a client is a decision maker. An editor who is employed at a publishing house can be a decision maker, but they might not be able to offer you a book deal because they may have to go back and talk to somebody at their house. So, getting approvals, depending on how the acquisitions process works at a given publishing house, that person might be part of a decision-making tree, but they might not be the ultimate decision maker. And then you also have publishers who are some version of being at the very top of that decision-making tree very clearly. So that is something to be aware of. Am I meeting with a decision maker? Am I meeting with somebody who has the ability to either take me on as a client or acquire and publish my book directly? Sometimes you could be taking a pitch with an art director. You'd be taking pitches with, fellow creatives, as I said. But again, those people aren't necessarily or aren't decision makers. So that I want to set up, and you need some clarity on that. I know that might sound stressful. How do I figure this out? But that is something to keep in mind. Also, how long is the pitch? When we were doing pitches in Bologna, they were 5 minutes long. So basically, what is the purpose of the pitch? And that goes back to the who. So you ahead of if you're deciding that I am going to show up, again, we're going to use a conference just as an example, in this space, and I am going to pitch a project, I have to decide what the purpose is for me. So do I just want feedback? Am I looking to just get feedback and hear what somebody has to say about the project itself? Am I at a place in the project where maybe I just want to get a sense for the temperature of the market, the viability, the marketability of my concept? Do I just want to make connections? Am I showing up and just trying to hear more about, connecting with people in the publishing industry? Where am I in my journey? And lastly, is it just some sort of relationship building? Now, typically, I would imagine the reason that you're doing a pitch for most people is because A, you're looking to pitch a literary agent a project, and then you're wanting them to offer you representation as a client, or you are pitching something to an editor who has the ability to either decide to acquire and publish your book, or the ability to bring it to a meeting and, bring it up the chain to acquire and publish your book. So what's going to happen, though many of you probably know this, is you're going to sit down in front of the person you've arranged to do the pitch with, and you're going to have 5 minutes, and you are going to be, the timer starts and then the timer ends. You might be given some sort of wording, but being prepared, typically these are in person. I don't know if your virtual pitches, they must be, virtual pitches are happening, but be prepared to sit down in front of somebody and really launch into it. Like when I am taking pitches, I am not saying anything. I am saying, hello, my name is, what do you want to talk about? And then it is up to you to go from there. So you should be, so I'm going to go to my next slide. Or am I? Okay. So sorry. Whoop. So we already went over that. How long? Sorry, just to be clear, the thing with a pitch is that the key difference between this versus a paid critique is that somebody has not seen your materials ahead of time. And probably they do not know anything about you. So just coming into it, be aware of that. They don't know you, they don't know your work. again, you're sitting in front of them, and that is for the first time they are seeing you. So I'm gonna stay here for a second. So you're sitting down, and it is incumbent upon you to sit down in that seat and launch into what you're saying. And people tackle this all sorts of different ways, and I am not saying that you have to do it one way or another way, but deciding whether you are going to have something physical. So I'm just going to do this. So basically, if you have a picture book, if you are a person who has visual element to their book, ideally you are going to have a dummy or something physical that you can present. This is, of course, only if you are an illustrator or working with an illustrator. And usually what you're going to do is you're going to hand it over, or here's what I like, basically, and people might like different things, but I like it when the creator hands me their dummy and I am able to page through it, and they can be talking while I am looking. So I am both like paging through, taking in the art style, reading the story, gauging, what my reaction is to it at the same time that they are talking. So you might be giving me the elevator pitch. You might be saying, really that idea of starting with what the book is about. So maybe like a few lines about just like the overarching concept, and then not too much about plot, right? Because I am literally sitting there looking through it. So if you are doing elevator pitch, you might be saying, oh, is someone unmuted? I'm hearing myself coming back. What the book is about. So maybe like a few lines about just like the overarching. Okay, awesome. So you're going to do a few overarching points about the book, and then you can give a pretty short description of what the plot is. Again, focusing right now on picture books. The other thing that you're going to want to do as I'm looking through it is you're going to want to also talk me through, and this is where something like a one sheet or an additional piece of material can come in, sort of what you see as where this book rests in the marketplace. So obviously, it is not incumbent upon you to know every single thing about the market of the book, but it is incumbent upon you to know some comps, to know why this book would both fill a hole that exists in the market. There's something about it that it's doing uniquely, it's doing differently than others, and also why it, links into things that are working. That could be things around school curriculum. That could be things around holidays or other milestones. Sort of like, why is this book? What is the book's reason for being? So when we're talking about, sorry, a little jumping all over these slides, but here we go. So basically, the thing is that you have to think about is not only are you pitching the story, the creative itself, the thing about a pitch that is different from what you might be doing in a submission is that, similar but different, is that you have to be prepared in that pitch to be a salesperson. You have to present your book as a product. I know that can be really hard to hear because, we're creatives, we're artists, we're authors. We don't necessarily want to think about that end game. But if you are talking to somebody because you want them to rep you or you want to get your book published, ultimately that's a commercial enterprise, right? So you have to think about, how am I looking at myself not only as an artist and a storyteller, but selling? I am selling my book. I am taking this pitch and I'm connecting the dots for people about why both I am a product and my book is a product. And then I am pitching it. You can think of it as any kind of sales pitch, right? Like it's as if you're walking into, your whatever your job might be or a job might be that is in sales. You're pitching it and you are trying to get the person on the other end of that conversation to engage, to be interested, to see the potential and the promise that is there. So thinking about that with a picture book, again, you're likely to put forward a physical dummy. If you are dealing with just a picture book manuscript, I would still suggest having that as a printout that you can hand to somebody. Obviously, they're not going to be reacting to the artwork, but you are going to allow them to read. And then if you are pitching a YA or a middle grade novel, or something that's much longer that someone's not going to be able to take in a matter of 5 minutes, my suggestion would be to stick to a one pager. So really just be, that's going to be a lot more lift on your end if you're pitching something long form. Now, there is some variability in the engagement that you're going to have with the person across from you, and it just depends on what their style is. But when we're talking about, are you truly ready and how to prepare, there is that element of, unlike a submission where you're sending a static email and there's nobody on the other side of it, there is a human sitting across from you and they are going to have thoughts. They're going to interject. They may have feelings. They may, give you their feedback in an honest and straightforward way. All of that is possible. And so there's no way to necessarily prepare for every piece of feedback, but you have to go in understanding that you are not talking to a robot. You're going to have to be in relationship and in communication with that other person. And that feels like maybe a pretty duh moment. But I think it's probably something that can be a little surprising and daunting that there's that element of surprise, right? This is a total stranger in all likelihood. So you definitely want to think about, when you should prepare for that sort of idea of, am I truly ready? Like, coming prepared to fill that 5 minutes. Like, there could be people who take pitches who just sit there and just take it all in and then plan to, sit with it after the fact and make any sort of determination. You could have somebody who's going to ask you questions. Anything is possible. So really, in terms of preparing, it's about understanding that you have to be nimble. And I understand that there are nerves. I understand that there are going to be things that are like, eek. But the idea is that you have to know, okay, this could go any sort of way. And in terms of any sort of like, it's up to you if you do want to engage with the person across from you or draw them out. So there could be a way that you decide to structure your pitch with questions, like, have them sort of play along. Like, if you want to say to the person across from you, this is totally made up, but if your book is about colors, you could say, what's your favorite color? If it's about shapes, you can engage them in that way, understanding that whatever question they give back to you then needs to be built into the flow of your pitch. But you can make that a back and forth if you want to. I would say that also the difference between doing a pitch and doing some sort of just submission, again, is that human connection. And so there is admittedly some element to it where we connect with people on this planet and we don't connect with people on this planet. So there is something to be said for, there is going to be that intangible element where, am I vibing with this person? Like, is this a connection? Like, if we are going to be working together, we're both going to get a sense of each other, and that's just what it is. So as much as it's an incredibly nerve-wracking moment, I know just saying relax would be ridiculous, and there's never going to be that thing of it's just totally chill. It is important, I think, to remember that that person sitting across from you is truly just a human, and they're also trying to get a sense for, is this somebody who seems like they could take in feedback? Is this somebody who seems like they are nice to work with, fun to work with? It doesn't mean you have to plaster a smile on your face and be really fake. It's just to say that that's also a moment to be aware that that editor, that agent, that person is getting to know you throughout that 5 minutes. And that is also going to leave an impression. So I will say that that's also something that I think what I have noticed from people doing pitches is that there is this feeling like the work won't speak for itself. And maybe that's not how any of you think about it. But for instance, and this is like on when I do pro tips, but a lot of people will bring stickers or candy or little trinkets or tchotchkes, that sort of thing. And that's nice. If the manuscript or the book or the art or whatever it is something I want to acquire, none of those things are going to make a difference to me. So I don't have a sense of how much those things cost. I don't know how stressful they are to create. But I would just say, if that's the sort of thing that's taking up your time, that should be the very last thing that you worry about. Because again, that's not the thing that's going to determine whether I am going to acquire a book. And I'm not going to forget you. If there is somebody whose work I want to publish, if there's somebody I really want to connect with, somebody who is ultimately going to be someone who's, who I identify as having a lot of talent, no leave behind, no whatever, or no lack of a leave behind is going to make me say, ugh, I don't want to work with this person. By this same token, if I don't connect with someone's work, no leave behind is going to make me decide differently. We won't forget about you. If there is something that feels to us like it's really promising, then it's totally going to be something that we follow up on. I'm going to pause there. Sarah Diamond, is there anything in this moment that you think would be helpful for me to?
Yes, Sarah. We have a lot of questions about if you could clarify what exactly is a one sheet or a one pager.
Sure, sure. I'll start there. Okay. So a one pager would be something that so, you could just find, sorry, I know this is not helpful, whatever. So, a one pager would be something that you could just find a template online for it. And I would just say that in the way, so think of it as a resume or a CV. First of all, also to say, I don't need your resume or your CV. Sometimes people do give those. I don't need that unless somehow it relates very specifically. But a one pager would be, if you have a picture book or something, you could put just a little piece of the art, like just imagining a one page and sort of broken up by columns, like designed in a nice way. I'm sure you could find a template in Word or Canva or PowerPoint or something. And it just says the title of the book, your name, and then just sort of key highlights, like a couple of lines about what the book is about. And then it could have just some nice doodles and it would say, focuses on neurodiversity, or a great book to help celebrate the holidays. It's kind of like the key highlights of like why this book is different, what the selling points are. It's very minimal on plot. It might point out what the comps are. Maybe it has a photo of you. It's sort of like it's a one pager that encapsulates what your pitch is. So basically, I would say once you figure out what that verbal pitch is going to be, is there a way to feed that into the one sheet so that maybe hopefully you won't, but if you forget to add something, or maybe I'm just looking over it while you're talking and I see, you make a point about, I'm a teacher and this was helpful for my classroom, or it's going to have back matter or something. It's sort of like those really, ultimately when every book gets published, I have to create something like that to present to my team internally. So a lot of editors and a lot of, I don't know, agents, but certainly editors are used to thinking of things in that distilled sort of format. So again, it could have some art if it's a YA novel or a middle grade with no art, no worries at all. And it doesn't have to be jam-packed full of information. It could just sort of show maybe a vibe, maybe certain atmospheric elements. It just shows me that not only have you written and created the project, which is, oh, heavens to Betsy. But it shows me that you've thought about that sort of connecting the dots for me around the product of the book, who you are, what the story is. So yeah, I think Googling, you could certainly probably look for just one sheets about selling things. I'm sure there are some templates, but it's that idea of putting the pitch into one page of sort of like a templated PDF.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Sarah. And then
Sure.
just one more thing. Could you briefly touch on if you're a writer only, what is expected of your dummy?
If you're a writer only, you don't have a dummy. So if
Okay.
you're a writer only, so if you're a picture book writer only, I wouldn't say you need a dummy. You're not going to need a dummy. You would just need, in my opinion, everyone's different, the paginated printout of just the manuscript. So you're just going to show me the paginated page blah 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 text, page blah text, just sort of that paginated text of the picture book. There's no dummy. And if you're doing a novel, you definitely do not have a dummy, which also is why just that one sheet is helpful, because again, you're not going to plop down a 200-page manuscript on the table, but it is nice for me to have that one sheet where I can see some key things, because again, taking in what you're saying and being able to read for myself and process that way, that's really helpful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. Anything else for now?
That's all for now.
Okay, great. So I realized that I never talked about this. So I'm going to go back and talk about this. So I understand that, so a portfolio review is going to be something that is specific to artists. So this is not something that if you write novels, you need to worry about. And chances are a portfolio is really for art. It would be, you could have a portfolio review of just texts of picture books, but typically you wouldn't do that. So really the portfolio process is if you are an artist or you are or a specific, or maybe you are an author and an artist who've decided to pair together to create something. So a portfolio review, so a pitch really should be, we can talk about this later, is meant to be focused really on one project, maybe two projects. Obviously, if you decide to do a pitch with an editor and suddenly this could happen, you're pitching, and you see, they don't seem that engaged, or maybe they say, oh yes, I already have a book this sounds great, and I already have a book just like it on my list. And it becomes clear that, 30 seconds or a minute in, maybe what you decided to pitch is not exactly going to be the thing that moves to acquisition or to representation. You do need to make a decision in that moment, like, okay, I could pivot and pitch something else, but you need to have that really prepared too. Like, it can't be, I 100% prepared this one thing and I 75% prepared the second project, and a minute in, I'm realizing I need to pivot, and so I'm just going to wing it on project 2. Nope. You either have to 100% go ahead and prepare your entire pitch for one book and that second book if you were deciding to pitch something else. So basically, I would say that a portfolio review, though, can be your body of work. You can go ahead and do a portfolio review where you are bringing in a bunch of your artwork. A lot of times this happens when you are working with the design team to do the portfolio review. It could also be with an editor and agent, and you are showing them either multiple dummies of what you have created, or you are doing your or you were going ahead and just doing pieces of your different styles within your portfolio. So again, the difference is it's not going to be one specific project that you are looking for feedback on, that you are pitching, but it's going to be an overall review for your style, how what your process is, all the different styles that you do, and all of the different ways that you create, different types of artwork, different styles of your artwork. You definitely want to be able to share, if you can do both, humans and animals, you're definitely going to want to do a combination of both. And there are certain styles that maybe you're trying out a new style. Maybe there's a style that you feel you're, more, what's the word, solid in. You're going to be doing all of that and sharing it with somebody, especially maybe if you've done books in a previous style and now you want to break out and do a new style, you could be getting feedback on that. So what I saw a lot of when I was taking pitches were people thinking that pitching equaled portfolio review. And so those are different things. And so with pitching, you really are honing that one, maybe two, that one pitch about one singular project that you have prepped for versus here's my body of work. If you have not solidified, perfected, etc., one particular project, then you would not want to sign up for a pitch session. That would be more portfolio review. If you are somebody who is an artist who wants to be doing covers more than they want to be doing, just cover design or just spot illustrations in long form books, you can do a portfolio review, but you may not have a pitch where you're pitching a specific project. So just to be really clear that going into a pitch, really understand what the pitch is versus the portfolio review. I know it sounds like a little like, that seems obvious, but again, I did see a lot of people doing portfolio reviews when they had signed up for pitches. Sarah, did I get any questions about that?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, great. Okay, so just to go back to how to prepare, Amy, who you briefly saw on screen. So Amy, I don't know if you are around. Do you want to pop in?
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Okay.
I'm really sorry if everyone can
No,
see
you're
me.
totally fine. We're gonna do so. We're gonna do while Amy's her Wi-Fi and everything is working. So Amy Malloy is the author and illustrator whose project I acquired last year after meeting with her in Bologna. And this is her announcement in PW Bookshelf at the top. And then this is the cover of her book, Gary the Naughtiest Wolf That Ever There Was. Welcome, Amy.
Hurrah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to do about 10 minutes of chatting with Amy, and then I'm going to wrap up my presentation, and then we'll do Q&A after that. So, but basically, Amy, do you want to share? I haven't told the story yet. It's just like a teaser that this happened. So Is there
Okay.
anything that you want to share? I mean, a lot of what I mentioned. Oh, yeah. I don't know why that just did that. Boop.
I just would like to say thank you to Sarah for being so flexible on this.
Totally good.
Just throw her into the deep end.
It all worked out. Yeah. Why don't
It
you
worked
tell
out.
everybody what you want to share? You were.
Shall I tell you the story?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a
From
bit
your
of
perspective.
it's a bit of a unicorn one, I think. But in short, I would highly recommend signing up for the Scooby picture book pitches. I was at Bologna last year. I'd been a couple of years. I finished my MA in illustration in 2024. And like July 2024, and then it was my second Bologna, but it was the first time that I'd been going kind of ready to speak to people properly rather than just kind of seeing what might happen. And I was very fortunate in that I just signed up for Scooby and saw that there were these appointments available. I thought, okay, well, that'll be really helpful to get some feedback. And I'd been to this is where I just caught the end of what Sarah was saying about the difference between the two types of appointment. I went to a portfolio review, had a great time with Tita. She gave me some lovely feedback. It was less kind of, there was less of a commercial decision making pressure there. And then it was my last appointment, and I was in a queue, and someone said, get in that queue, because then you get to speak to the Random House editor. And I was like, okay, I'll wait here. And I need to find that person, because it was such a fortunate thing. Because when I sat down in front of Sarah, I think I had to get off to the airport after that. And I was a bit like, hi, jazz hands, here's my pitch, this is my dummy, blah, 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 blah. And I walked away going, well, that was a car crash, but we had a giggle. And I think I even managed to ask for a Pantone in the middle of it. And she's like, wow, you are ballsy. And anyway, I just thought this is really great to get some feedback. Didn't think anything was going to come of it. And then I was at the airport and I got an email saying, could you just share that PDF with me? I thought, that's great. So I did. And then I woke up the next morning. And said, you said, are you going to be at the Scooby party? And I was like, I'm not going to be at the Scooby bookshop party. I'm at the airport on my way back to England. And anyway, the next morning I was sitting in the cafe, I was about to do my follow-ups, and I got an offer from Sarah in my inbox. And Gary is going to be hitting the US bookshelves next year, which is so great. And we've had a really funny year working on it. So don't give up, because it does happen. And if you have the right idea at the right time, then for sure.
Yeah, I will say, and I'll have Amy sort of talk a little bit about her preparation process, but when I'm sharing all of this with you, I'm very much thinking about my experience with Amy. And the thing was that I really connected with the character in her book. I really connected with her artwork. I really loved the sense of humor in the story. I really also got a sense of, her sense of humor too. As I was saying, it's only 5 minutes, but, we had an opportunity to both, in that moment. It's an interesting thing. You all have prepared for this for whatever, weeks, months, your whole lives, to what you've created. And then I'm reacting and I have no poker face in that first few minutes of seeing it, and then needing to say, you're watching my gut reaction, which is not to say that you should sit across from the table from me and like stare at me while I'm trying to take it in to see what I'm thinking. But, that is the reality of what these pitches, of what it looks like. As I said, it's not a robot, it's not a submission, it's a human. So Amy, why don't you share what you did to prepare and anything that you want to, we're getting a lot of questions in the chat about the actual pitch. So I'm gonna let you really talk here. So you talk about your actual pitch, share what you think people want to know about how you prepared. So you talk.
Well, in terms of energy, I think you just got a vibe from like literally the similar kind of, I'm a little bit nervous and I've got 5 minutes and so there's probably a lot of that going on, kind of crazy English lady. But I think I felt more ready than I had the year before, that's for sure. In terms of, I think, don't get me wrong, there was a huge amount of luck about Sarah and I sitting down together at that time with that story, yada yada. But however, I think someone said once, someone famous, I'm sure, and I can't remember who now, said that luck is a combination of opportunity and preparation. And it just so happened that I was ready for that opportunity when it came, that I was prepared. And the things that I had was, I actually had really nailed down, I guess, the commercial piece, I think. So I'd done like a 1-pager, which had, I'm an author illustrator, so I had both but I guess it would be the same. But if you were just author, have your kind of elevator pitch statement ready, like comp titles. So I said, I can't remember now what I said. I think this is Oh No George, like Chris Horton meets, Little Red Riding Hood meets kind of just subverting fairy tales. And I had a fair few different comp titles. So I really positioned it for Sarah. I think I said, like, this is where I see it fitting in the current market. And I had I had the black blurb already. I had some of my artwork, and I had my because it's a limited palette, I had my palette kind of swatched out. I also had a dummy book, so I'd printed out a dummy, so it was in full sketch. Like, it was, a lot of it was very rough sketches, because I think I'd only finished like some of the pages like the week before, but in terms of really nailing them down. But then I had a cut 2 or 3, I think, full like finished spreads. I do remember, Sarah, you saying, and this is where you said you probably felt like you were being really obvious, because you said, is this how you picture the final artwork being? And I thought, yeah. Is that not okay? And yeah, and it was obviously okay. But so I had a dummy book that you could flick through and kind of read the story as well. But it wasn't, it isn't the final version that you'll see when it comes out is it'd be really interesting to, put it against the dummy book. We've simplified it down quite a lot. So it doesn't have to be perfect, I would argue. I mean, Sarah may say have another thing to say on this, but it wasn't the finished article in the sense that I had just had a really good sample of what I could deliver and what the idea was. And we've massively shaped that. We spent about 4 months like properly shaping that, and going back and forth and pinning down the storyboard and stuff. And even like last week, I said, can I just make another edit? Because I'd read it to a lot of school kids, and I was like, actually, there's a couple of things that I want to change, and that didn't land when I read it properly aloud to a classroom. So it didn't have to be perfect, but it was there, and it was commercially pitched, I think. So that was my prep: a dummy book and a kind of 1-pager quick sheet. And a lot of gumption.
Yes, gumption also key. Yes. So yeah, we've gotten a lot of questions about what a 1-pager is. So maybe I'll chat with the team afterward about the 1-pager. And yes. So
yes, I can.
We can figure out a way to do that.
To share that.
Yeah. So a comp title, I saw that question come through. So a comp title is something where either in the spirit of what a book feels like, your book is reminiscent of that book. So it could be about the characters, it could be the feeling, it could be the topic that it tackles, but it's giving an editor, an agent, that like really quick sense of, okay, I don't know, I've never seen this book, it's totally new to me, but it has the flavor of X book and X other book. So sometimes that's also, this isn't going to be with picture books really, but with YA or middle grade, it could even be a movie or a TV show. In terms of how recent the comps should be, they don't have to be that recent. So I would say that it's just more of a,
I found it.
Oh, go. Yeah. What are you?
Yeah,
what is,
I found
this is the 1-pager?
I mean, this is just really kind of on the
Can
fly.
you scroll?
But you can, yeah. Can you? So it was originally called Gary No.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and so I had like my 3 pieces down there. I had my palette. I had themes. Sorry, my camera's doing crazy things. It wants me to focus.
You're totally working. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay, and then I had my blurb, and then I think like here I had my comp statement, which I'll happily read, and then I had my positioning. So I said picture book, read aloud, age 3 to 6. So it said Gary No is a hilarious and calamitous trip into fairy tale land for any child who always seems to get into trouble, and for anyone who's ever owned a naughty pup. Reclaiming and subverting the big bad wolf stereotype, Gary No combines the fairy tale subversions of Gina Kaminsky and the great fairy tale disaster with the humor of Oi Frog and the lovable misunderstoodness of the bad seed. That also made up some words, which apparently helps. So yeah, there you go. So that's what I presented, and then I had the book, and I sent the PDF of the book while I was at the airport.
So yes, I would say so someone put in the chat, like 1-pager and 1 sheet are synonyms. So however you want to sort of put it, it's like it's like
a sell sheet.
Yeah, exactly. Sell sheet, like selling document for, thank you, sell sheet, not 1 sheet. Sell sheet for the book and for you as an author and creator.
Let me
Amy,
see if I can pop
else?
it in the chat. No,
you
that's
want
it.
to share about anything or
Um,
any advice you want to give people?
I think just be brave, be ready, be confident in your story, and don't, be ready, I think, and be aware that this is a commercial opportunity. So it's not about you being good enough or not good enough. Like, if you just need to be clear, I think, about what your idea is and where it would fit for that editor. And that might be that you're just going to get feedback from that editor. It just so happened that what Sarah needed and what I had to offer, like, it gelled. But even so, Sarah would have been able to give really good advice. And the best thing you can do is just be super, super clear on what it is that you're selling.
Yeah.
Basically, because you are essentially selling the rights for somebody to publish your book, your idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank
Is
you
that
for
helpful?
joining us. I feel like we could have done this whole hour. People are so excited to hear from you too. So,
but I will put my Instagram in the chat, and then if anybody wants to get in touch, you're very, very welcome to. Okay.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me.
Yeah, I also saw the question. Amy was not agented at the time. Do you want to mention?
No.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Can you?
Yeah.
So do you want to just quickly?
Yeah, I wasn't
mention?
agented.
Yeah.
I wasn't agented actually. I had a portfolio review with someone who then started their own agency, but I'd had, with an ex-agent, I'd had a portfolio review and some time with her, who gave me a bit more of the advice on the commercial stuff, but I didn't have an agent. I was actively querying. So after I had we had our initial chat, didn't we, Sarah? And you said, do you want to take this time before we do the contract to get an agent? Like, it's that easy. I was like, well, I'll try. And you so you had some contacts, but I also had some people that I'd been in the process of querying. So I actually wrote back to a couple of them, and I was fortunate that one that I was really keen on got back to me. So Molly at United got back and said, actually, I just updated my query and said, look, I just to let you know that this is now kind of under offer. And she came back to me, and it wasn't too late, because I don't know what happened. It all went off my CC list, but everybody, I think, you had long chats about, terms. So I think you were very candid and open, Sarah, and you said, you might get a better kind of boilerplate contract if you are agented, but obviously you don't need to be. So, for me, and I was just fortunate that I was in a position where I could go back to people and say, I've kind of updated my position. Whether they would have said yes, otherwise, I don't know, because I as fate would have it, I haven't had a reply yet. So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, no agent, and then I made her the offer, and then she went and got, an agent. And so yes, that is, I know you hear it all the time from everyone here, but yes, I'm always very pro agent, and there are nuances, but that was also something that totally worked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it has been good with her. So yeah. But anyway, submit to Sarah. She's so great. Go see her after Scooby. Anyway,
thank you for joining
Thank you for having
us.
me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was so fun.
It was perfect.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm so glad that we were able to make that happen. All right. I'm going to this is still not working. Okay. So let me just see if there was anything else. Hello. Oh yeah. Manage your expectation. Okay. I think this is really, we've covered this. Pro tips, we've talked about this. The stuff is the leave behinds, and then just managing expectations, like what Amy said. And look, you're going to hear me give one piece of advice, you're going to hear somebody else give another piece of advice. But, I know we always say, be ready and it should be done and perfect. Amy had several really baked final pieces of art, and the rest was sketchy, but it was enough for me to see how much potential it had. So, and again, I think managing our expectations around what is possible, what can come out of that, really going in with an open mind and ready to get feedback. And then, Sarah Baker, I think that's it from me. So do you want to take...
Hello.
Hi. You're
Sarah.
back.
This was just
I'm so glad. Do you think there's anything, I mean, you can take the questions, but from where you're sitting, is there anything you think I should to start, anything that needs clarifying or that's worth adding?
I don't think so. I think we'll hear from people if that's the case. I thought everything was super clear, but I'm pretty familiar with a lot of this. I'm so glad Amy was able to join us.
Oh my gosh, me too. I know. I really wanted everyone to know that there's, how that how
That
that
can
really
really
was for
happen.
her on the,
That's
yeah, that
why
really
you
happened.
get your pitch ready.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah Diamond. We're the trifecta of Sarah's, and Sarah Diamond behind the scenes has been sharing some great questions with me. There's tons, so I'm sorry to anyone watching,
Sure.
and if we don't cover your question, um, you can always write to us. We're happy to try to get questions answered offline if we don't cover them here. Okay, let's go. For a written pitch, should we try to express our personality in the query letter or focus on the highlights slash basics?
Um, so the query letter, I guess, is not applicable in a pitch. So are we thinking just like how much personality? So I guess we'll talk about the sell sheet or the one page or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's super important to have that sense of personality. I mean, you kind of see how Amy was able to reflect that in the sell sheet, and obviously that can be easier when you have the art to supplement it. But I do think that you can do that with font choices, with colors. There are ways that you can convey beyond just like the text, kind of what the vibe is. And I think really thinking about the pitch, you have to think about what that whole environment is. Like now that I've walked you through what a pitch looks like, really thinking about like where we are, literally what am I doing? What's going through my mind during those 5 minutes, what the takeaway can be, and mapping out what is the best way to support you in that way, and also give me the best flavor of you, the story, its commercial viability, and its potential.
Great. Um, this is an interesting one, and I've actually heard this question a lot in different forms. So if someone has self-published books already,
Mm-hmm.
is that something that they should mention just about themselves and the history of their body of work?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if the what you're pitching is something self-published. I would say that you can mention it. So it's most relevant if what you're pitching has already been self-published. Um, I wouldn't spend so like there are multiple, so I wouldn't spend a ton of time trying to defend or explain that decision. People self-publish for all kinds of reasons.
Mhm.
Um, Ultimately, admittedly, if you've self-published, maybe not in that moment, but I am going to have questions before I acquire the book about like how long ago did you self-publish it? Have you done anything to promote or market it? How many copies have you sold? Did you only do it through Amazon or what? So there's going to be more to talk about.
Mhm.
It's by no means something that is a knock against you. If the book is great, the book is great. That doesn't matter. It just so happens that when you self-publish something, there's a lot more data
Mhm.
that goes with it than if it's something that wasn't self-published. But it's definitely something you need to make people aware of because it's a different situation.
Totally. And that's very clear. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's thorough. And that's just to reiterate, that's if you're pitching that specific book that
yeah,
you have already self-published. If you've just
correct.
self-published in the past, it's less relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. This is very specific, but I think it'll be helpful for everyone.
Okay.
I have speed pitching sessions with 3 agents coming up. I'll be 50% of the way through my middle grade novel. Um, what is a realistic goal for this session? Is it possible to get an agent interested in representation if the book isn't done yet?
That is a good question. So, typically, what I have heard from agents is do not query me unless you have the full manuscript to send me. Because if you query an agent and then they immediately request it, they're going to want you to send that manuscript immediately. So, in my opinion, for something like that, it's a great opportunity for you to get a general sense of how people are reacting to your concept.
Mhm.
Um, you also can I don't know what speed pitching, I don't know how many minutes or seconds speed pitching is,
I'm
but
not sure either because it ranges from
yeah,
event to event.
yeah.
Speed pitching is something that SCBWI does and other organizations. I'm assuming it's very fast.
Faster than five. Okay. I would just get a sense for what they think about the overall concept. And look, that's your 2 minutes, whatever it is. Like, if you feel like what you really need that 2 minutes to be is somebody saying to you, that doesn't sound viable, or I already have something like it. Like, you can also say that and be upfront about it. There's no need to pretend. So if what would be most helpful is to pitch it and then have them say, like, that seems oversaturated, or I've seen a lot like that, or that sounds really original, you can also be clear about what you're looking for.
Okay. All right.
I think, in my opinion, you get the
Yeah,
different
all of
opinions
this
from
is
100
your
people.
opinion, so
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, we have so many good questions, you guys. How are we going to answer them all? How should someone, and I'm going to editorialize a little bit on some of these. How should
Yep.
someone prepare for a Zoom or a virtual pitch? And I'll just say, if there's anything different from all the information you've already given, if there's some inherent difference in pitching virtually.
Yeah, I mean, I think bearing in mind that what you're not going to be able to do is give them sort of multiple things and allow them to go through it at their own pace, right? That's not possible. So I would say that either, and maybe, I don't know if however you're doing virtual pitches, if these rules have been outlined at the beginning, but I would find out if you can, is the expectation that you're sharing your screen so that you can only show them one thing at a time and whatever you're sharing is the only thing? Or is it like you can drop files into the chat and then they are opening those files as you're talking, which is much more like an in-person pitch. So I would get very clear about the logistics first, and then that is going to, in my opinion, drive the preparation in a way that you don't deal with when it comes to in person. So that is, I think, how to wrap your mind around it, especially if you have to share your screen to share the materials. And then being aware that, like, if you have to be the one to click through something, there could be that awkward back and forth if you're like going too fast or too slow. And then so just being aware that it's probably going to be a little wonky, and to just lean into that and not kind of, as much as you can, not feel panicky that you're doing something wrong. Like, the technology is going to make it weird, and just lean in and be aware of it. Just go with it. Yeah, everyone knows it's a little wonky.
And maybe get a friend to practice with you ahead of
time.
100.
That's a great idea.
Get your critique group to get together and do some practicing.
Yeah.
Okay, great answer. Can you speak a little more about finding comp titles? This is always something people have a lot of questions about, especially for middle grade and YA books. How current should comps be?
And I saw something in the chat about, I've heard comps should only be 3 years. So I feel like maybe, Sarah, we should do a session on comps.
We're getting all sorts of ideas.
Oh, really? Okay. Great.
From all these wonderful questions.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to do a quick but attempted a thorough deep dive on comps. So comps function a lot of different ways. So sometimes basically what a comp, like how I want to see a comp at this stage versus how I use comps internally when I'm pitching your book, that is totally different. So what you have to be sure of is, somebody is giving you comp advice, are they giving you advice as a pre-published creator, or are they talking about it when they, as an editor or potentially as an agent, are comping internally? Because that is not the same thing. When I am seeing when I'm getting a pitch or seeing a submission, the comp that I want to understand is like, what is going to give me the quickest window into what this is? So yes, it is very important that what you pick, there's this Goldilocks effect that I think is very frustrating for people, where it's like, do not comp to Harry Potter, do not comp to Mo Willems, because nobody is going to be Mo Willems or Harry Potter. At the same time, if you're comping to books that maybe feel a little bit more within reach, but I've never heard of them, it doesn't help me, because yes, your book may be just like this other book in the best way, but like, if I've never heard of that book, it tells me zero. So I think that you can do sort of a combination of things when you're looking at comps. Like, what's something that's pretty, like, within picture books, within middle grade, within YA, that's like pretty much in the cultural, like, consciousness, pretty recent, that feels like it's at a level where if you're talking to somebody who's in the YA or middle grade milieu, they're going to know what you're talking about. That's a great comp. You don't need to know exactly how much it's sold. We can still, because the thing is, there's this sense of on the one hand, the comp is about telling me that, so to give me the sense of like, I know what the book is. The comp is also trying to show that you know what the book is and that you are doing the work of having read up on like what's working. So on the one hand, and then I will wrap on this soapbox about comps, is like, those can be different things, right? Like you could comp to something that was 10 years ago, but we all kind of know what it is and it gives a vibe. This is especially true, sorry, for YA and middle grade when you were talking about trends that come back around. So if we are now going back maybe to a paranormal or dystopian place in YA, comping to something that was really successful 10 years ago, but then you've updated it in a way or it's like more relevant, that could work as a comp. So there is not one size fits all for this, but again, the idea, the key takeaways are you giving me a sense for what the book is? And are you showing me that you've done your research and you are well-versed in the marketplace? Those are the key things to think about. The last thing I will say is that the rule is you should not be comping to 2 non-book things, but you can comp to 1 book. This is not, sorry, rule. I know we love rules and we hate them. This is how I comp. 1 book, at least, and then 1 movie or TV show or whatever, but not 2 TV shows, not 2. So like if you feel like it's blah book meets The Breakfast, whatever, then you can do that. Okay, sorry.
Ooh,
that was
I love that rule of thumb.
Yeah, just as a guideline, because like I
Great.
need to know there's a book relevant, but I know sometimes it helps to use media.
Yeah. Sarah, how much time do you have left? Do you have something else, or can we
No.
dominate your time for an extra 5 or so minutes?
You can, let me double check, but I feel I have the extra time. Let me see. I feel confident. Yes, totally fine.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then I'll say a few more questions.
Okay.
Here's a great one. What are the biggest mistakes people make in a pitch session?
Yeah. So the biggest mistakes I would say would be, yeah, that's a great question. I think like lack of clarity on what they're pitching. So again, people who come in with like too many things that they're pitching, to me is like, okay, let's just like focus in. I think that people also, and look, this is what I was saying before about how if we love your book and it works, there's nothing that can stop us. The idea that like people will get, in my experience, people get really hung up on like, do you have my contact information? Can I send this to you? Do you like the logistics of, can I do this or will you find me? It's like, to me, you walk in and you keep it on the project. Like people who are trying to like have that panicked energy of like, I am not going to get what I need is like that really comes through. And I'm saying this, I understand from the privileged position of being on the other side of that table. I don't know what it's like to stand in line for an hour and have 5 minutes with somebody. So I get that. I really do. Nonetheless, I will say that as much as I can share with you, like the work speaks for itself. The preparation speaks for itself. And so in that moment, if you feel panicked that like, I don't know what it is. I don't have your information or something, or like, can I submit to you or whatever? It's like, all it is in that moment is you and me and the work for 5 minutes. And can we keep it there? And I think that I like remember that from Amy, like that was just like, I could tell she was there to discuss the work. And if you're there to discuss the work, that comes through versus like the obvious anxiety over, am I gonna get published? Am I like, think of it that way.
Yeah.
So.
That's a great note because everyone relates to that feeling of panic. So we can all just acknowledge that we might have that feeling going into an opportunity, and then apply everything you're learning here and know that like, even if we feel that feeling of panic or scarcity or whatever, if you're prepared and you let the project shine and you just use that time to get excited about it, and get the person excited about it, that actually is using the time the best way, and it's going to make it, you know, the most effective. And I love what you're saying, Sarah, about like if an editor or an agent or art director, if they fall in love with your work, your project, whatever it is you're showing them, they're going to find you.
Yeah.
They will find you.
Yeah.
So don't
Totally.
be too concerned about logistics.
Yeah.
Okay, just a couple more. And this, so there's this could easily turn into an hour. It's just, you know, just respond however you want to, just for a minute,
Sure.
because there's so much here. But
Sure.
but and also I'm happy to help, you know, if you want help on it. But there are a bunch of questions about using AI. And so
Okay.
you know, it's narrowed down a little bit. AI is a huge topic in all ways.
Sure.
But the question specifically is, will publishers mind if I use AI in my pitch slash sell sheet slash dummy?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it to a minute.
Yeah.
So I would say that anything, so let's take, cut me off when I've gone on too long, but let's take each of those things separately. So let's talk about the dummy. So to me, that's the dummy, the manuscript, the text, the artwork, the work, the think about it as it's 50 years ago, understanding there's Procreate, whatever, I understand, but whatever somebody would have, Beatrix Potter, whatever, would have made, you know, that's the work, right? And so AI should not be used in my opinion, on the work. Like that. So the dummy is the work. It is the presentation of the work, zero AI, understanding that some programs like Procreate, maybe Photoshop, are bleeding into what that means. But I don't have the nuances enough about those kinds of programs. But on the whole, this is the work, should not be touched by AI. Then you have something like, so let's go to the pitch. So I don't know, because I have not tried to use AI to construct a pitch, like what you could ask that the pitch would then give you back. I'm going to try to keep this answer, like, I'm going to assume that the person who is asking is comfortable enough with telling AI or ChatGPT, whatever it is, the information that is required to do this. And I'm not going to go off on a soapbox about what it means to be arming the thing with the information that you're going to give it. That's a personal ethical decision you can make. So I don't know what you would have to tell AI to then get back what amount, I don't know why it's doing that, what amounts to a pitch. I don't know what that is. But to my mind, I don't think that there is anything necessarily wrong with using AI to help support elements of a pitch. The thing with the pitching is, this is a whole thing. It's a construct that is required in publishing. It is something that has nothing to do with being horrible, Beatrix Potter and the work, but it is something that is necessary for the business of publishing. So to my mind, there are things that you can do to help yourself with the pitching. Is that comp titles? I'm sure people would love to use comp titles in their pitch. To be very, very clear, do not put a comp title, I should have said this before, on your pitch that you have not read. Do not do that, because that is disingenuous. That is also, if I dig in and I ask in what way the comp applies and you can't answer that, that will look bad.
Yeah.
AI or no AI. So definitely be well versed in the comps. It's possible, frankly, that it could help give you some ideas for a reading list. So to me, there are elements of AI that can help in the pitch. And to end with the sell sheet, some of us are better and worse at creating visually beautiful pieces of stuff. So like, is the way that what's it called, PowerPoint will suggest through its like designer function how to rearrange stuff on a slide to make it look nice, is that AI? I guess probably, but like, who cares? So I guess the question is, to me, you don't need to disclose the use of AI when it comes to things like creating the physical like design of that sheet. You don't need to disclose that you've used it in some manner in your pitch. If AI in any way has touched your creation, that is a whole different story, and we legally cannot publish things that have been created by AI. It is in our contracts. Nobody owns copyright on things that are created by AI. It is very complicated. So it is like a no-go. I don't care what your moral, ethical quandaries are, what your opinions are, but like from a legal perspective, I cannot publish a book that has been touched or created in any way by AI.
Thank you. That is super clear. And I think that last point you made is a little bit new for everyone. And everyone's going to start hearing it a lot more. So I agree. You know, we can and will, you know, in terms of CBWI, keep talking about it and exploring this idea and keeping everyone educated. But it's so important for everyone in this industry to understand that, you know, writing and art, you know, that's been created with generative AI isn't, you can't copyright it, and no one can you know, they can't publish it legally. So
nobody asked this, but can I add like one thing? So I don't know if anyone's asked this, but so the question of if I am only an author of a picture book, but I'm not an illustrator, should I get AI to make the art for my picture book or picture book dummy just so I can show an editor? Sarah's literally about to breathe into a paper bag. Just so that when I can go and have a meeting with somebody, I can show them what I am envisioning. And I can say that, like, you know, every time I've heard, you know, from somebody in a pitch, here's the text, but this is what I'm picturing for the art, so that I can show them how these words do not do it. Do not do it. Do not walk into a pitch and be like, I made this with AI, but I just wanted to show you. Do not. It is not a good vibe to walk into a pitch, even if you're being honest, and have something that AI created. Just walk in with the manuscript. It's enough.
Yes. 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 I don't need to add more. Yes. Okay. I think we've covered everything. Well, we haven't covered everything. Sorry, everyone in the audience
I know.
who asked a question, but I think that we've stretched it as long as we can go. There's one other question that's more just about like, how do I find more opportunities to pitch my book? Sarah, anything you want to add, but I'm happy to.
I don't, if you could share, or
So
I would
like
love to hear it too. So
great. Yes. So like you all heard at the SCBWI booth at the Bologna Book Fair, and there are probably other opportunities at the Bologna Book Fair. We just make it really, really easy, and it's free. But there are other opportunities. So here's what you should do. First of all, at what we call SCBWI HQ headquarters, just stay tuned in general for any events we have coming up. Like sometimes at the big conferences, we have pitching opportunities, pitch roundtables, sometimes in person, sometimes virtual. Also, some of the regions, the SCBWI regions, which are all over the world. And for anyone watching, whether you're a member or not, if you're not in touch with the region near you, find them on our website. They're all there. They're all 80 or so regions are always putting on all sorts of in-person and virtual events, and sometimes there's pitching opportunities. So really just stay attuned to what's going on in the entire SCBWI community. Of course, there's other opportunities elsewhere as well, but just within the SCBWI kind of world, there's so many. And then I mentioned this in my intro. Sometimes there's events where you can sign up to pitch, and that's wonderful. Kim just put a note in the chat for everyone about the summer virtual conference and pitch opportunities. But also just keep in mind that even at other SCBWI events, you know, you might be watching a keynote and sit down next to an incredible editor, and that might be your opportunity to at least not necessarily pitch because you've got to read the room, but it might be an opportunity to introduce yourself. It might lead to a pitch. You know, it's called an elevator pitch for a reason. You know, when you're at an in-person event or even taking advantage of kind of the social aspects of virtual events, these opportunities come up. And that's when you hear success stories from SCBWI members. It's a lot of times it's not just about, you know, I registered for this event and I was able to do the thing, which is wonderful. It's also, I just met this editor at an event and we clicked, and later on we talked, and then I pitched, and then, you know, I started my career. So really just, even if you don't have an event that you're signed up for at this very moment, but you have a book you're working on, everything that Sarah Sargent just talked about is super relevant. You still want to figure out how you want to pitch it. And then maybe if you're signed up for a specific event, you're gonna really, you know,
Yeah.
get it perfect.
Yeah.
So we have some more questions, but they're more just general. So I don't want to take up your time with them, Sarah. Maybe we'll stay open in the chat a little bit and try to write to people. And also, everyone watching, if there's any questions you didn't get answered about pitching and about SCBWI events, you can also reach out to us just with the little green button on the website, and we'll be happy to answer questions. So, Sarah, thank you so much. This
Oh
is
my
so
gosh,
much
always
fun.
a treat. Always so nice. Always
We
so
love
nice.
everything you do, and we really appreciate your time.
Oh
And
my
Amy
gosh.
too. Amy, when you watch this part later, thank you for joining us. And thank you all of you for being here. This was a wildly popular event, which tells us that our members want more pitching opportunities. So we're
Yeah.
gonna get right on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate everyone engaging in the chat, and also the little, I don't know what they're called, the reaction buttons. They do mean a lot when I'm just like a talking head. I just, you know, I will say, so thank you for doing those. They do not go unnoticed. So
Yes.
it is helpful to have people engaged when it's like I'm here and you're all there. So
Absolutely.
such a treat to be with you as always. I will see you all very, very soon.
See you soon. Thank you, Sarah. We
Bye, of
appreciate it.
course. Bye.
And thanks everyone for being here.